Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Hope you all had a great weekend. For today's video, I actually want to take a look at an interaction that happened in yesterday's question period between Pierre and the housing minister, Sean Fraser. Now, Sean used to be the immigration minister, which will play an important role here. But since Trudeau wasn't there today, a lot of his other ministers, who will also play a role in today's video, had to speak as well. And this is how it started off.
Common sense conservatives will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. This prime minister is not worth the cost of interest. According to Scotiabank, the prime minister's deficits are adding 2 full percentage points extra in interest costs for the average family. That works out to about $6,000 for a modest mortgage of $300 grand. $6 grand in extra mortgage payments from these deficits alone. Will they finally wake up to the fact that this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition seems to know the cost of everything but the value of absolutely nothing. Does he not see value in the measures that are building more homes in this country? Does he not see value in programs that are going to put food on the table for hungry kids through a school food program? He continues to oppose measures that are helping students with the cost of their education and the families with the cost of housing. Mr. Speaker, we will continue to put measures on the table to make life more affordable for middle-class Canadians and do right by a generation of young people who've been priced out of the housing market. It's a shame his policies would have the exact opposite effect.
Hear, hear. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, we can't see the value of homes and food that don't exist after 8 years. They have a food program which after 8 years has no food, a affordable housing program which has doubled housing costs. They're not worth the cost, and now their deficits are driving up the interest obligations for the average family. For a family with a $500,000 mortgage, deficits are adding 10 grand in additional interest payments per year. When will they realize that after 8 years, this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost?
The Honourable
Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, the Honourable Member wants to talk about homes that don't exist. Let's talk about the 800,000 affordable housing units that were lost when he was last in government. Let's talk about the fact that when he was actually housing minister, he got 0 apartments built with the support of the federal government. Let's look at the fact that across the entire country, he was able to get a total of only 6 affordable housing units built. Mr. Speaker, he talks a big game, but he does literally nothing for the people who need to get into the housing market. We've got new measures that help people who are renting now and measures that will make it easier to save up for a down payment and to reduce your monthly mortgage costs if you want to own a home in this country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
More proof this NDP Liberal Prime Minister is not worth the cost is that he picked the most incompetent immigration minister in Canadian history and put him in charge of housing. The guy who lost track of 1 million people.
So you can see these guys are taking pot shots at each other. And I wanted to touch on what Pierre was talking about in regards to losing track of 1 million people. Now, back in 2023, the Global News came out with an article in August saying Canada undercounted non-permanent residents by 1 million people. The Canadian population recently reached the milestone of 40 million, but the number of non-permanent residents in Canada could be underestimated by about an additional 1 million, according to a new CIBC report. And they did a little video on it, so I'll play it now.
Tackling the housing crisis just got a lot harder, and not for the reason you'd think. The latest culprit? A statistical error.
I believe that we are undercounting the number of non-permanent residents in Canada by roughly 1 million.
CIBC's deputy chief economist, Benjamin Tall, estimating official government figures on immigration are wrong. He believes 750,000 non-permanent residents, mainly international students, have overstayed their visas and are still in Canada. And an additional 250,000 were not properly counted in the most recent census. Calculations Tall briefed the Prime Minister and his cabinet on last week in Charlottetown.
This is something that we have to fix because it has major implications for demand for housing. And if we are undercounting them, we are also undercounting demand for housing and therefore misallocating resources.
Implications also for key data from the Canadian Housing and Mortgage Corporation, which estimated 5.8 million new housing units must be built by 2030, but that's based on potentially inaccurate census data.
great as the need is for housing, we've actually underestimated the need.
To reduce rental demand, Housing Minister Sean Fraser floated the idea of a cap on international student visas.
We've got temporary immigration programs that were never designed to see such explosive growth in such a short period of time.
One of many ideas Tall believes government should implement.
This is a major crisis, and it's getting worse and worse. We have to run faster to stay in the same place because supply is not rising and demand is rising very, very quickly.
So that's just a little bit of the context in regards to what Pierre is talking about when he's throwing that pot shot at Sean Fraser when he was immigration minister. And Sean's also doing that, coming back at him when Pierre was housing minister. So it's just a tit for tat. But I wanted to just give a quick little insight on that. Now back to the question period.
Who's blamed by his fellow cabinet colleagues for causing the housing crisis and who presides over the most expensive housing market in Canadian history. When I was minister, the average rent was $950, and we built hundreds of thousands of units at that affordable price. So why won't he learn from our smashing success in 2015 in keeping costs low by axing the tax and building the home?
The Honourable Minister for Housing, Infrastructure and Communities.
Mr. Speaker, now at the time they expressed opposition to our plan to welcome 40,000 Afghan refugees who fought alongside the Canadian Armed Forces. They seem still to have problems with the fact that we opened our doors to vulnerable Ukrainians. But let's actually focus on the housing issue right now, Mr. Speaker. He talks a big game about housing. They get antsy when they're confronted with their actual record. Let's take a look at what he got done. Only 6 affordable housing units across the entire country. Lost 800,000 more. 0 new apartments. Now he wants to raise taxes on home building and cut funding for the communities who are getting them built.
Now, I don't know if there was something in the water at the House of Commons today, but there was a whole lot of interrupting, heckling. The speaker had to step up multiple times saying, colleagues. But I'm not sure if the Liberals think that the carbon tax is a huge joke to them, because they even went as far as bringing up again that video of Danielle Smith from which I played a few videos ago about her talking about her getting more during the pandemic with the carbon tax, and they were using her in the House of Commons today in this manner.
Mr. Speaker, Danielle from Alberta knows that she gets back more in the Canada carbon rebate than she pays through the federal back SALP on pricing pollution. Premier Smith, I mean Danielle, actually did the math herself and came to the conclusion that, quote, I would say that I probably ended up better off with that transfer, end quote. Can the Minister of Environment and Climate Change please inform Danielle and other Canadians of what they should expect to see in their bank accounts today as a result of the Canada carbon rebate, and how much this policy is helping Canadians with the cost of living while at the same time protecting the environment for generations to come?
The Honourable Minister of the Environment and Climate Change.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank Danielle for her testimony. With the next quarterly carbon rebate payments starting to arrive in Canadian bank accounts and mailboxes as of today, in Danielle's province of Alberta, a family of 4 will receive up to $450 4 times this year, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, over 300 economists, it was 200 last week, it's now 300, from coast to coast agree that the evidence showed that not only does carbon pricing reduce pollution in Canada, but it does so at a lower cost than any other approaches. Pricing pollution works, it can support Canadians and fight for climate change. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Now, it sounded like they all were having a great laugh, a great giggle, which is cool. You know, it's fun to see the other side of them. But at the same time, we're talking about the expense of people and the carbon tax and how they're suffering right now, going to food banks, can't afford things. And after hearing Guilbeault talking about 200 economists to now 300 economists are saying that they agree with the carbon tax and the carbon pricing, and then Anita Anand saying this.
On this side of the House, we will continue to make our economy greener. The environment and the economy go hand in hand. Unlike the Conservatives, we believe in science.
It made me really think back to a climate video that I saw not too long ago, which explained that this is just a big money pit, and the only reason people are agreeing to this is because that's how they get funding.
The United States Congress only funds problems, okay, research into problems, whether it's money that goes to NASA or NOAA or National Science Foundation or Department of Energy or any other alphabet soup, organization.
It's always been a problem to support your research or your existence, or raison d'etre. And so climate was a godsend.
If Congress is willing to pay you to find evidence of global warming, by golly, as a scientist, we're going to go find evidence of it, because that's what we're being paid to do. And guess what? If you don't find evidence or say the evidence suggests it's not a problem, your funding ends. This totally corrupts the way we look at the science.
There's an almost comical list of studies out there. Just do a Google search on climate change and everything comes up.
Few of these papers ever questioned whether climate change was actually true.
After you've done the research and you write the paper up, sometimes you find there's no effect at all from climate, but you still have to say in your papers, oh yes, climate change is real, and we just need to study this some more.
Take the banking sector, for instance. You say to a banker, we want you to file reports with the Regulatory Commission on how climate change is going to affect your bank. Well, the banker doesn't know anything about this subject, so then they have to commission studies from academics. And of course, the academics are happy to come and tell them, well, it's going to be terrible for your bank. It's going to cause all kinds of problems, and you need to give us money to research it. I started a few years ago seeing programs like a master's degree in climate finance. And I just went, what on earth is climate? I understand what a master's degree in finance is. Well, now you need a university that's going to teach this program. You need professors of climate finance.
Every single school or university or business will have a climate officer or climate officers and a climate program. And you look at any of these institutions or businesses, you will find they all are signed up to it, and anyone who hasn't signed up will come under pressure.
It's a wonderful business opportunity, okay? You want climate, we'll give you climate.
Now, I'm going to leave the whole video linked in the description below. I highly recommend watching it. It's a great video. Although I don't think we at this point need a video to see that climate change is kind of a money pit, kind of a scam in regards to all these jobs, all these people who back it, Greta Thunberg and all these climate activists who've been saying this is the end of the earth for, I don't know, almost 100 years now. And to me, it just seems like a lot of cherry picking from our government where they're talking about The Economist. Well, in here in this video, we have an economist saying the complete opposite of what they claim the 300 economists are saying. And I understand this video mainly deals with the US, but the US doesn't have a carbon tax, produces way more emissions than us. I believe they're third on the list. They're like 15%. And they're even saying that climate change is a money grab, is a scam. So take it as you will. This is just my opinion as always. Love to hear from you guys. Let me know in the comment section below. Again, all the resources will be in the description. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.